Welcome back, WrenchNation.tv. I appreciate you. I've heard from you guys over the years, and one of the things that I'd say I've heard from you, this is your show, man. Like, you guys have input. If you got show ideas, a guest, if you got a rock star technician, hanging, instructor, it's not all about, we've had some A-lister, we've had some pretty cool people. I love to share the journey. Just know this show is you. I invite you to Wrench Nation Facebook. Twitterland, we're hanging on Twitter and Instagram. In fact, I think I'm shadow banned on Instagram. I don't know how that works, but somebody told me that, and so I don't know. But we love you either way. I've got Mr. Donovan. You hanging, Donovan, are you there?
Hey, Frank, I'm here. How are you?
You're a rock star, man. We hung out. We've done some industry events, and I admire all you do. It's so let's get the folks acquainted. Let's establish your talentness. You're a rock star. What do you do over at ZF North America?
Thank you for the great intro. So I am a category manager at ZF, and the categories that I'm responsible for are TRW chassis and also SAX ride control. So, the shocks and struts that you were talking about earlier, I manage that category for ZF.
Give us some insight. Folks have heard that in management and so on. You're working directly with the engineers. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. I do work with the engineers regarding development for new product. We all work as a collective whenever we're announcing product to the market.
I imagine like a frenzied kitchen in the back with a bunch of chefs. I mean, there's some protocol. Everyone has, their protocol in manufacturing and so on. What is the biggest thing that you see, Donovan, in terms of the last 10 years? I can't say that history proves that we're beating our vehicles up a whole lot more, but you do see the engineers kind of being challenged regarding ride control. What has changed in that category, if I can ask, to give the consumer some insight in, let's say, the last 5-10 years that we didn't see maybe 10 years prior? Is that electronics, is technology? Were we having some challenges as engineers trying to meet the demands when it comes to shocks and struts?
Well, I think the main thing that we're seeing now versus 10 years ago is that everything is becoming so technologically advanced, especially when it comes to our vehicles. So in the past, you used to see, let's say, shocks and struts, for example, wouldn't necessarily be connected to your car, via ECU and providing a lot of data. Now you're seeing a lot of the shocks have CDCs built into them.
Let's stop right there for folks. I don't mean to interrupt. See, the CDC, because a lot of my my mid-90s Chevy truck individuals, they're accustomed to just the hydraulic shock, pop it out, pop it in. But you're saying there's data points that what does the CDC acronym stand for, if I can ask?
Absolutely. So CDC stands for constant damper control, or continuous damper control. And what that means is it pretty much it updates and it adjusts to your ride, to your driving history. So let's say as you're driving down the road and you hit a bump, that CDC will relay a message to the computer that relays another message back to the CDC to stiffen up the ride if needed. Really what it's doing is providing an adjustment to your ride comfort as you're driving on the road.
On the fly, it's receiving data, input, sends an output to make that adjustable. I know the Europeans were big, as they are in most things. I remember when, airbags, Europeans already had it. All these systems seem to come a little later here in the States. And many, we see them in the garage on a lot of our SL clients, our GLK, Mercedes, BMW. But now we're starting to see this sort of damping control, this sort of automated suspension ride control on Asian domestic vehicles. It seems like that's a pretty common setup for suspension.
Absolutely. In the past, it was pretty much reserved for your luxury vehicles, but now we're starting to see that technology expand into your more common vehicles that you see on the road on a day to day.
Let's talk about that. I'm driving. I feel something, but it's not extreme. and then I have a light on the dash that they may work with this central control unit, which is sort of calculating all these dampening forces. What would you tell me as a consumer? Is that something I should worry about right away? What is that then turning to and affecting the rest of my vehicle? If we can maybe specifically get down to tires. I get a warning light. I drive. It's not a check engine light. It says, don't worry about check engine light. But if I have a suspension light on, because I ask you that, I have consumers coming in and they think, oh, that's secondary. I don't feel my engine seems to run right. But what are we damaging if this whole CDC system is dead in the water?
Yeah, well, you could be providing uneven wear to your tires. And, also if those aren't fixed in a timely manner, you could provide additional damage to the front of your vehicle or even the rear. What I like to tell everyone is we have to be vigilant and listen to our vehicles and also watch when they give us the warning signs. I know sometimes it may be easy, once you hear a sound that you may not want to hear from your car, to just turn the radio up and ignore it. But when you see those warning signs, it's best to take it into the shop immediately to prevent further damage.
I got to share a funny story. So back in the day, my first shop in mid-'90s, I was in a marketplace where all the lights were on and most people really just cared about performance exhaust. They wanted some muffler action and how it was all and like, Frank, don't even mention those lights. And some of these folks are like, hey, those lights have been on since 1960. My car is fine. Not with these newer vehicles, because here's what I see. I'll translate this because you're giving great information, Donovan. And if you're just joining us, we have category manager of ZF North America, a talent that's behind the sort of manufacturing, engineering, getting it to us and the distributors. Of course, you can buy many of these ZF products, specifically. We're talking TRW. You guys remind people you've got a whole slew. Let's tell people the umbrella of ZF, and so it's TRW. You've got Sachs, which is shocks and struts. What else you got?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we also have the Limforder aftermarket brand. That's pretty much our premium for chassis and sensors as well. We have TRW friction for all of your brake pads and rotor needs. So, yeah, we have a wide variety of products, pretty much everything you need for your vehicle.
Yeah, and I invite you to get onto YouTube, all things ZF as in Frank. There's some great, we're big on sort of training videos. Of course, we'd love to go out to the World Pack STX and get our in-person training on. But there's some pretty cool videos. I enjoy watching a lot of your videos. And so if you're listening and, maybe you heard something about riot control, it's all, monitored by a control unit and so on. And then when you come in my garage, I got to tell you, yeah, we got to test and verify, because these systems they're not easy if you're going to guess. And a lot of you are right now in that position. You're driving a Mercedes, perhaps you're driving a Nissan, you're driving a Toyota, where you have some of these active systems regarding your shocks and struts, and you took it in somewhere, and you still have the same problem. Traditionally, I think we can get back to basics, Donovan. An average shock or strut, we called it's leaking, not like an oil leak, like an engine oil leak, but, we see it leaking, we say, hey, it's got to compromise to the seal, which houses the hydraulics. It's sort of a cylinder and it's going up and down. Hey, can you correct me? This was a stat, and some people had said, Frank, that's not right. Do shocks and struts right around 60,000? Do they go up and down 80 million times, roughly? Up and down?
Yeah, I'd say roughly about right.
I heard this statistic, and I had mentioned, I think one of my clients come in the garage, took off their glasses. The glasses got all smoky and said, what'd you say, 80 million? What, are you kidding me? I said, yeah. I said, if you're driving, here's a way you can tell a bad shock, other than you're feeling everything. You'll know. It's like an age match of spring, and the spring is popping at you. Bam! You'll know. But if you ever drive on the freeway and you look, you're paying attention. You're looking straight. You're not in your phone, you maniac. Don't text and drive. But you may glance to the left and you see this wheel bouncing up and down a lot. It's bouncing. Macarena up and down. Boom, 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 boom. That is a bad shock or strut. And on that note, let's get back in, Donovan, because people heard tires. There's a relationship with tires. Can you explain what is that tire eventually, like what's the terminology that people will hear, the type of wear that they'll get from a tire from a bad shock and strut? What is that tire going to look like?
If that tire is on a vehicle that has bad shocks or struts, you're typically going to see wear either in the inside, and in some extreme cases, if you have other components that are failing, you may see it on the outside. And what that can do is that can cause dragging when you're driving your vehicle. It can cause your vehicle to pull to, one specific side, and it can eventually, if not, if that tire is not replaced and those shocks aren't updated, you can eventually potentially have a tire failure.
Yeah, you can catch some of these videos. ZF, I remind you, go on to YouTube. They've got a lot of educational videos for all things shocks and struts. And I tell you, I see you in the garage, and here's the gig. Think of an emergency room. You go in an emergency room. I'll just give you extreme occasions. You stop breathing. What do the doctors do? They got to revive your breathing. Now, what's next? Well, they revived your breathing, but now you got other damage. It's a cause and effect. Listen, all these things under hood, under suspension, specifically these shocks and struts, could cause what the effect would be is worn tires. And you need to think about that because a lot of you got tires. You come in the garage. I don't sell tires. You went elsewhere. You come in. I may do your alignment or what have you. And you say, Frank, I did these tires less than 24,000 miles ago. And your ride has got about 130,000. And it's got the original factory shocks and struts. That's like having a mattress spring. Grandmama passed me down the mattress spring from 1940. These springs don't cushion that long. So the cause and effect, think about it. And most good tire shops will forewarn you, hey, you got this excessive premature tire wear, and it's attributed to shocks and struts or maybe some other suspension components. Let's talk about braking. We know that as shocks and struts wear, that's going to affect how that vehicle stops. Talk to us about that, Donovan.
Yeah, that's correct. So the way I like to explain it to everyone is as one component on your vehicle begins to fail, you can eventually expect that those additional components are going to have to overcompensate. So if your shocks and struts are failing, you're going to put more pressure on your braking or your brake pads. And that can cause premature failure at the brake level as well.
I think the number is the increased distance to braking. Remember, guys, those shocks up front or struts, they have to, as you slow, the front of the vehicle wants to jounce down a bit. And if shocks and struts are extremely worn, you're jouncing way down. And that creates longer braking distance. I've seen it in the garage. I've had you come in with 200,000 miles with the original shocks and struts. And you're like, well, it's an old car. It don't ride like it does. And when I install new shocks and struts, oh, my God. You guys want to give me all kinds of birthday cake and candy. You give me all these gifts. Frank has never driven like that before. Well, we've been telling you about it for a long time. And I will just be open with you. Quality. I'm not happy with the marketplace. There's a lot of choices. You are not buying the cheapest donuts, people. Automotive service is about the quality. And here we go, warranty. Talk to us about that. ZF North America, in fact, ZF Global, has legendary history about the passion, pride, and protocol by some talented engineers to put out a quality product. Talk to us, Donovan. I know that the whole team at ZF does a tremendous amount of testing and R&D. How do you test your shocks and struts before they come to me?
Absolutely. So our shocks and struts are tested through wear testing. So they go through various mileage phases to make sure that they're providing the adequate service for the recommended miles. They also go through salt spray testing for everyone that has vehicles in the Midwest. That's very important. And also just various mileage tests to make sure that they're adequately holding up.
You said salt spray. Some of us Arizonians, we need therapy. I always tell my people, keep those vehicles on your side of the Mississippi. We don't have salt or rust in the desert. And I'm telling you, my guys need therapy. If I got a part that's rusted, I mean, really, I got to send guys to therapy because we're spoiled. A lot of you in Missouri and everywhere else, you're like, that's what we do. But I like the idea that you're really testing. If I plan to go to Canada, I have a lot of Canadian snowbirds, and we got to make sure that the product we put on, we think desert. But if they go up to Canada and they deal with what they deal with, because out here in the desert, all we see is sun, maybe. That has to meet the demands of the environment, and that salt testing is huge.
Oh, absolutely. And, consider yourself lucky you don't have to deal with the salt, because that means you don't have to deal with that snow. So you're very lucky.
I know. Well, listen, I'm going to be out in Michigan next week. In fact, I'll be hanging with a lot of your folks at ZF. I always am honored to look at some new technology, and hopefully we can report on that. But I am being serious. We are spoiled in the desert. And so, a good mechanic has torches back east and up there by Michigan, and we don't have torches. If somebody pulls out a torch here, we're like, oh, that needs some work. I know I'm being silly, but the point is, you listening need to know that these items are tested for the quality of it. I mean, I'm going to be real with you, and you've requested it. You've come into me and said, well, Frank, I like this particular product. If you're that individual, we'd like to say, hey, we like to provide the product. It's like going to a doctor. You can't go in there and tell the doctor, hey, I want this particular brand of kneecap. I'm like, doctors ain't, like, we want to watch out for you. Some of you think we're all commissioned on the parts we sell. It's not about that. We do not want to see you again with the kneecap made by the coconut tree in Vietnam. I'm sorry. My Vietnamese family are going to get upset. But the idea is quality. Most of your local automotive rock stars, they're in the business of researching with great companies like ZF for that quality. And I'm telling you, if you're driving a European vehicle, that's critical because the tech is there. And again, a lot of you driving the Asian and domestic vehicles as well. Like the truck market, we're seeing some fascinating suspension. Where do you see the future, Donovan? What's the buzz at ZF regarding engineers are percolated because we see this technology? Or is it just pretty much steady as we go with more command control, ride control? What's the future of struts and shocks as you see it, maybe?
I think the future is going to be pretty much what we're seeing now in a lot of the newer vehicles. A lot more, a lot more technologically advanced incorporations into the shocks as far as them communicating to the ECUs of the vehicle. So I think we're going to continue to see that advance over time. Unfortunately, gone are the days where we had just the regular basic shocks and struts. I think everything now is going to be tied into technology and providing that perfect ride experience.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked a lot about this hydraulic strut and shock. Some of you drive an incredible, it's like driving on a cloud, and you have airbag suspensions that sort of combine with hydraulics, very managed, and you've got these sort of bags, these airbags. We do see them in the service bays where certain valves may fail. The bag itself can fail. There could be a leveling sensor. That leveling sensor works together to sense where that ride height is and so on. Talk to us about that air ride suspension. I know that specifically Wabco, sort of a different division, works under ZF, has the Wabco air suspension with that ECS technology. Talk to me about how that rubber's compromised, because some people visually, I tell them they need an airbag, and honestly, I have a difficult time explaining it to them. I just say, hey, it's just a bag with air, and that's not good enough. So talk to us about that rubber airbag, if we could. How's that put together, and what kind of testing is done to that?
Sure. So the testing that you're going to see on that is a lot of resistance testing to make sure that that rubber is built to last. Typically, what you see in regards to the wear is that around 50 to 100,000 miles, that rubber that is in that bag begins to wear out, and you'll have leakage there. Now, when that happens, you'll receive fault codes on the dash. Of course, the air suspension system won't work correctly, and that's when a replacement is needed.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you summarized it pretty quick, but I'll be honest with you, it can take us a few hours to sort of diagnose and test our version of an X-ray because we just don't look at a bag and some YouTube videos like, well, spray the bag with water. Okay, it's leaking. Well, it's maybe, but there's solenoid valve blocks. There's pressure sensors, height sensors. There's an actual brain, a computer that has some logic back and forth. And if we don't get that right, we may, again, cause an effect. I'm sure you're testing, you're figuring out, okay, through these sort of, I think you said it was more compression, up and down over time. You get to that 50 to 100K where it starts to wear. You're also testing on the rest of the system in regard to these height sensors and so on. Let me ask you, with a vehicle, let's just call it 100,000 miles, some folks are getting quoted to do what is broken, but there are other aged components, and I won't hold you to this, Donovan. You know, an air ride suspension can be complex. Would you recommend, hey, let's replace what's broken? Can we wait on what's aged wear? Is it a good time to maybe just service the whole system? What's your take on that? And I won't hold you to it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it depends on the issues that the customer's having. If it's a complete failure, of course, I recommend we service the entire system. But if it's reviewed by the tech and they're seeing that it's just an issue with the bag, you can definitely just replace the bags and be okay and not have to replace the entire system. But it's really a case-by-case scenario situation where, it depends on the issue that the customer's having.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why it's important. I'll give you some consumer tips before you go in. You certainly want to, some of you are doing the YouTube search and sort of trying to self-diagnose your vehicle, and I respect that, but you're seeing stuff on YouTube, and so you go in and you sort of have this maybe coulda, woulda, maybe this is what I think I need. And you say, how much does it cost to replace that solenoid valve block, when you really should be saying, hey, what's it cost to accurately, without guesswork, test my system? Here are my symptoms. You hear me say that a lot, and it's critical because if you're in the wrong hands and you're back and forth, they can look at a bag visually. I mean, my daughter can look at a bag and say, oh, that's got a hole in it or whatnot, but checking the whole system, the integrity of the system just ensures, like a good X-ray, all bones are checked. And I don't want you to fall into the trap where you heard a price that, well, that sounds good. Ask the hard questions. Will you be testing my whole system? Will you be telling me not only what's broken, it's important, but give me the straight and skinny on other wear and items. And hey, I feel you. Can some of this stuff wait? That's the key. Because I get it. A lot of you are like, well, Frank, you talk like that because you're in the business. I get it. You don't have a money tree. When you come into my place, and a lot of rock stars across the country, they're locally embedded in their community, servicing these vehicles. They will advise you accordingly. If you're in the right hands, award-winning community, you can tell when you walk into a place. And I say that because some of you just, you're looking at these coupons and you get trapped. When you're calling around, how much does it cost to test for, here's my symptom, right front of my vehicle is leaning. That could be suspension, obviously, right? Your air ride. And they'll say, hey, this is what it costs. Because guess what? If they get it wrong, people, they will own it. I've had it. I'm raising my hand. I'll be honest and straightforward. I hold my technician crew, master technician, I hold them to the fire. They get paid to diagnose the best they can. They're not perfect. You want to test that circuit, test the system. And so if we're wrong, we're going to own it. And that's what you're paying for. Donovan, I didn't mean to preach on that, but it's so important because I do think that people, as an example, they were driving a Chevy truck and now they're driving for whatever. They decided they want to get themselves a nice Mercedes or whatever. And there's a shock and awe about what it used to be, how easy, and why is there a charge for an X-ray? I'd imagine your sentiment is get it right, because you don't want parts returned either because they were
Correct.
misdiagnosed.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right.
I mean, we got to represent our parts people. You know, we're not trying to give them gray hair, so test it right, because that could be a problem for our distributors and so on.
Absolutely. And you know what, Frank, you're absolutely right. A good diagnosis of a vehicle issue will save you tons of future problems in the long run. You know, you don't want to get misdiagnosed or have someone just change one thing when it could be a variety of things that could be causing an issue.
I want to step back in time. Let's move away from shocks and struts. Let's get into Mr. Jordan's world. Jordan, give us your background before. What was your vibe? We got a lot of younger students on campus there in the automotive technology program. They may be having a tough day. Give us a little bit about your background, and more importantly, you had that tough day. Umbrella didn't work, brakes didn't stop, people yelling at you. How do you overcome your challenges in your day? I mean, you're responsible for a lot. How do you handle that?
Sure. So what I like to do is, and it's something that my dad taught me going back to, to Little League sports. Whenever I'm having a bad day or I have a lot on my mind, I just take 3 deep breaths, inhale, exhale, relax, clear my mind, and then I just go right back to it. I think sometimes, we just have to take a second to step away before we re-engage, the situation. I think that does wonders for me.
You think some of us get emotional because we're in that environment. Like, I'm in a room that's on fire, and I heard you say just take a deep breath and breathe. For sure. I mean, but some of us, I think we get emotional. Do you ever feel like that can happen to you, or you're methodic, you're disciplined? I mean, as you were younger and coming up, you ever feel like that fire was raging, and yeah, Dad gave you good advice, but maybe it wasn't working. I want to dig into how you truly overcome. You're breathing, you're doing all these things. Does that work for everything for you?
Well, not for everything. So I can actually give you a really good car example of this. So, so I grew up around cars. I really like older cars. So I have a 1970 Oldsmobile 98.
Oh, nice.
That's a convertible. Yeah, it's my toy. I've been working on that thing for years. But one day, I had just got the engine rebuilt in it, the 455, and I'm driving it home.
Big block.
Oh yeah, big block. I got some nice Edelbrock heads on there too.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I'm driving it home, and the brakes go out. Right. So
you on the freeway? Where you at? Driving home, like local or?
No, I'm on the freeway.
So that's about as bad as you can get.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Worst case scenario, right? I told you I had a good example. So the brakes go out, and I'm like, oh man.
Come on, man. You started breathing. Tell me you were deep breathing.
Oh yeah. I took some deep breaths. I said, okay, Donovan, how are we going to get through this? What are we going to do? So believe it or not, I actually made it home just coasting the car to get there. And it taught me a valuable lesson. One, when you get in those old cars, you got to check everything before you do long trips.
That's some basic. You better check your ride. You better have a second and a triple check because stuff can fail. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, but I think the most valuable lesson it taught me is you got to remain calm under the craziest circumstances. Remain calm and work your way through situations, and you can get through anything.
Yeah.
In that situation, it was the brakes going out on my car, but it could be a smaller situation. My wife and I, we have a newborn now. He's a toddler. He's going to be 2.
Oh, this is number 1. You're a new papa. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. There's some days where he can be a little bit tough, and some nights he wakes up and you gotta focus and relax and just work your way through it. You gotta be calm, have a calm approach. So I like to just have a calm approach to issues and and just relax and think of a way through things. And it's worked for me.
Good for you. And I imagine in sort of engineering mode and working with some great talents at ZF North America here, that you're going to be challenged. Sometimes things on paper don't really translate to the real world environment. And I'm sure that can, the math ain't mathing is what I'm saying. And it's good. We have a lot of folks on campus that may head over to ASU, Arizona State University. They perhaps may go to the Ira Fulton Engineering School there. And there has to be sort of a disciplined approach to it. But what I was thinking, I was going back to that story without your brakes. Man, you had to have been panicking a little bit. I would have been.
Yeah.
Because, like, not having brakes is like, it's not like your horn went out or your turn signal.
Oh yeah, it was a scary situation, Frank. I can't sit here and lie and say I didn't say some swear words because I definitely did. But
it's hard. I've been behind it. I've seen some stuff as well, but I think that's I think the adrenaline, like that fight or flight for a lot of us, But you're right. Don't panic. And I mean, I would have been like, okay, I have no brakes. What's next? Oh, there's a tree right there. Okay, my steering works. I just got to steer out of the way. I mean, you do have to take it within stride, and for sure that's good advice. Here, I got to share with you, man. So when my youngest was born, and really congratulations, it's a beautiful time in life with your son and your wife and growing a family, and it's not easy, but the joy out of that is just so special. You have these experiences that can never be taught, or you just experience it in the moment, and the baby farts and it giggles and it does all these things, and it's life. You're experiencing life. But I want to take you back to some advice that I got. So I'm at the hospital and my baby's born, and they said, let's wrap the baby. The baby's wrapped and the baby's nice and comfortable. And this nurse, she came over. She was an older nurse. She was a sage. She was like full of wisdom. She said, in an accent, I don't know if she was Eastern European or whether she was from Guatemala, but she had an accent and I couldn't place it. And she said, Janelle, you will teach them how to walk and talk. And I looked, and I'm young, I'm 22. I said, I nodded. I'm like, yes. And then she said, you would then teach them how to shut up and sit down. And that's life. I mean, and that's the joy of life. So I mean it from my heart to yours and your family. Congratulations. It's a really beautiful time. And you know what? That's what invigorates us in our life, because sometimes I think we can get into the doldrums of what we do, and we need that special gift. So congratulations.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that.
I heard you into football. Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. I love football. I've played since a kid, and if you would have asked me who my favorite football team was, a couple years ago, I probably would have told you anyone but the Lions. But but now, they flipped the switch and they're looking really good. But yeah, no, I enjoy watching the game. Big Lions fan now. When it comes to college, I'm a Michigan fan. And I just like the sport. I think it's a great way to relax and enjoy the weekends.
Nice. Hey, where can folks find more information regarding ZF and all the great products, specifically as we talk about the Sachs ride control and, of course, TRW chassis? I want to study on this. Where would you send me if I want to educate myself?
Sure. So we actually have a pretty good social media presence. You can follow us on Instagram at ZF Aftermarket. And I believe we're also on Twitter and Facebook as well. Now, we also have a website that we have all information on all of our products, and that's aftermarket.zf.com.
Nice. I'll make sure to have that in show notes. A lot of you can do the research. I know many of you don't want to walk into that's the worst feeling, is this anxiety of what you don't know. And some of you will study on it so you get familiar with the language. There's a lot of great information. I'll make sure to have that in show notes. Give a big shout out to the ZF tribe that you work together with. Anybody you want to shout out within your team?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I'll go down the list and shout out the entire team. I don't want to miss anybody, so I don't want to name individual names.
Listen, this ain't the Grammy Awards. Grammys, don't worry. You forget anyway. They'll still love you. Don't worry. Hit me up with some names.
The pressure is on. No, first, I guess we can give a shout out to Chelsea. I know you work a lot with Chelsea Spicer. She's been great. She's the one that got me, involved in this interview. So, also Megan as well, Mark Talley, Ava Melchor, who's my boss, Brian Rassin, Francisco Moreno, I believe he's going to be on soon, right?
Yeah, I just want to stop you right there. I got to give a big shout out. I love my educators because it's not easy. They got to study. They got to make it easy. They got to perform. They got to make that information attainable. You know, we all learn all the different ways. And for Francisco Moreno, all my technicians out there, you need to get. Where do they find Francisco again? I know we covered this in the past, but I want to make sure people know if they want to get their training on. Where can we find Francisco Moreno?
Francisco actually has an Instagram page, I believe, where he posts a lot of his training stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to find it. I'll put it in show notes, too.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it really quick.
It's all good. I just want you to take away, I mean, you don't have to be an industry professional. Just know that look, it's one thing to sort of manufacture things really well. But to have the support, the true support, I mean, that's what we're after. Like, I have a squad of technicians, my tribe. Like, I got to make sure that I'm getting the right, not only product and quality for you. I don't want you yelling at me behind your ride because I installed some inferior stuff, especially when it comes to ride handling and ride control. It's nice to know that quietly, and I got training. And so Francisco Moreno, I'd like to really call out some special attention. I had to meet and do some work with him, and he's amazing. Works also in South America, if I remember correctly. So Donovan, yeah, you got an amazing tribe, and I think a lot of us in the industry are grateful and appreciate it. And hey, listen, if you're not familiar, please be my guest. Do the research. I'm going to spell it for you. SACHS. SACS. You can type that. And if you're on the weekend, you said, Frank, I got this. I don't necessarily need you in the garage. Maybe I need you for the alignment. eBay, Amazon, it's out there, and it's going to do you right. And so I invite you to do more research on that. Donovan, any parting words for the automotive technician? What would you give me as advice in the service bays? I'm listening. Tell me what I need to do better in the service bays. Tell me what I got to do.
Sure. Hey. Well,
make sure your brakes work.
Right. Don't let anyone leave the bays with bad brakes. But no, one parting word I will say is, well, two things. One thing is, as a customer, I have a shop that I go to, and one of the things that I value the most from my technician is that they continue to not only educate me, but also, give me advice on my vehicle. So,
isn't that what it's about? It's so true. Like, I know a lot of people have this horror story. Oh my God, they said I got to get all this done, and it's like, the good talents are going to organize approach. And I'll repeat it to you just to compliment what you're saying. It is so simple, people. I repeat this on the show all the time. And yes, I feel like a broken record. But if you're new to the show, just know, number one is safety. I got to know safety. Number two, what could cost me more money later? And number three is the teeth cleaning, fluid flushes, and things like that. That's a good guideline, no matter how complicated a vehicle is. That's a good approach. And I appreciate you saying that, Donovan, because I was going to try to open a shop in your neighborhood.
Hey, I'm sure we could use you down here, Frank.
I know, I'm being silly. I'm glad to hear that you got a great service provider. Donovan Jordan, seasoned professional, over a decade of automotive experience. An honor to have you on our radio show. I know we've worked in the past as a category manager at ZF. You're doing an amazing job. I thank you, representing a lot of the technicians and shop owners, for really providing us with stand-up product. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the time. Hey, and one more thing. If you need chassis components, TRW Chassis, look us up on any of your e-commerce sites, Amazon, eBay, we're there. And also for your shocks and struts, Sachs Ride Control, we have a top-notch product. We offer OE replacement product, so check us out. I promise you we'll give you the replacement product you need to make your vehicle ride the right way.
There you go, and I'll have that in show notes. And if you caught this on the podcast, maybe replay it. A lot of it is just basic essentials. But let me tell you something. You need to get the basics before you get all highfalutin fancy. So, Donovan, you're a rock star. Big hugs, love to the ZF family. I appreciate spending time, and we'll hang soon.
Sounds good, Frank. You take care.
There we go. So some good notes. If you got any questions further, we always invite your emails, wrenchnation.tv. Always an honor. Thank you so much for hanging with our podcast. I really appreciate it. Always invite you to line up your interest as far as the topic. I got some exciting shows coming up. We're probably going to have a replay next week. And I don't know, I'm so organized, but next week we got a live show. I think it's the following week. My kids have sort of winding down the school schedules and so on or something. My wife keeps me busy. As I tell you every week, be safe, hug each other, and never forget to hug a mechanic.